All right. So I know what I need, right? I need a turtle, I need some seagulls, I need a fishnet, I need some water, some sky, some splash, about 5 images. So let's just assume that we're going to start off with, the sky. Now, I'm doing this for a couple of reasons. Number one, I'm opening them in a new layer so I can control them because this layer is going to get kind of busy. And because when I have it in its own individual layer, let me show you what we've got to do, because I've got to take the original and we have to demonstrate. This is common practice when it comes to any competition that's photo manipulation or contest. And I do this also when it comes to just client work. It's kind of like showing the process work, right? So that whenever we work on an image, I'm going to change this image for my needs because I need to make it wider. I need to make the ocean a little more smoother so I can get a reflection. And I need a little bit more ocean. So that's why I open the individual ones, but I also just drag them in here. So I have that as a resource. You just put it back in the background and lock it to start working. So I said already right now that this is the one I'm going to use for my background. So you go ahead here, go ahead and just drop it. And even though it looks like it works for my purposes here, I'm going to do a quick couple changes to this, the sky, because like I said, I want to adjust it. And let's just start with some simple ones, right? Let's go ahead and copy and paste, edit, transform, look horizontally. And this is a common practice here of it's called set extension. So you see, I just extended it a little bit there. Go ahead, grab the other side here, copy and paste. And I like just using this quick little flip horizontally. And so now I've got a slightly wider version of the same sky, which I'm of course going to select all those new layers and Control E to merge them into one. But now we run into that issue that we've seen already where you see where I've got some mirroring going on, okay? Well, the cool part is I can use the existing image here though, using things like the clone stamp. And I'm going to do this so that, again, I can use current and below. Still need a bigger one here. Because I just want a little section here of this cloud. So I'm going to grab this cloud here, hold my Alt and click, and then come up here and just kind of add a cloud, right? Now, because I've done that, I can go ahead and scale that cloud up, move it where I want it to go, release it, and then I'm just going to use this to grab my eraser now. Oops, I need to invert my selection, invert it, and I can come in here and I can get rid of what I don't want. Or I could have just hit delete, right? Much easier, much better. Okay, merge that down. And then I could do the same thing here. Another new layer, clone stamp. I'm going to select this part of the cloud here. Do the same thing and just drop a click in. Scale it up. So I'm just clone stamping clouds to kind of cover up the repetitive of that cloud. Select it, invert it, delete it to get rid of what I don't. And again, merge down. Now I've got a few more here. And remember, those are very easily done here, right? Because you can see what it's doing, it's mirroring or tiling because I copied and flipped. And again, with a minimized opacity, I can eliminate that sort of patterning. Like down here at the water even, right? So I can come here, Okay? And I'm just kind of taking out that mirroring process, okay? Just to blend it out so it doesn't look like it's just a repetitive. So I just expanded on my image a bit. Something else I'm going to do here, watch this. I'm going to grab my, now this is interesting here because you'll notice that my ocean is a little off, okay? So what I need to do here, I'm going to go back to the sea sky here because this is really cool. Underneath the eyedropper tool is a ruler tool. And this is a really simple, easy way to correct a crooked image, right? Because this image was taken on a little bit of an angle, so my horizon is not straight across. With the ruler, I can draw a straight line across of what should be straight, like so. And then image rotation, arbitrary. And what this is going to do is this is going to basically take my ruler and say, hey, my ruler is 2.25 degrees off of straight. If I just say okay, you see it corrects the whole image so that now I have a properly straight horizon line. So I can now that it's straight, grab it like that, copy it, paste it, and now I can make some adjustments, making it the actual width. I'm actually going to, whoops, hold my shift key to stretch it out to get a little bit more ocean. Go ahead and just trim it straight. Merge it down. And I'm just going to do one more quick little trim, just to trim off all the extras I don't want. Again, select, invert, delete. Okay. And the last thing I'm going to do here is select my ocean because it's a little too wavy and I want it to be a little smoother for reflection purposes. And I'm going to apply a filter to what I've selected here. And I'm going to use the motion blur. You see how that kind of softens it. But again, I need to stretch it out a little more. So you can see here, I couldn't find the absolute perfect example of a background, but I was able to work with the background to make it a little bit longer, a little bit wider, a little bit taller. And I was able to blur that water out. So you can see the original and you see the end result. Now be aware, this particular image is obviously a warm image, meaning anything that would be white is slightly yellow. Anything that's black is actually slightly blue because warm light gives us cool shadow. So eventually all the images I now bring in here, I'm going to have to make them match that lighting. So if it's cold or warm, I'm going to have to also apply that so any whites would be yellow, or I change the background and make that cool to warm. And because I'm done now, I can actually close out my sea sky. All right, what else can I put in? Let's start with the sea turtle, right? I'm going to open the sea turtle, and here you can clearly see what's going on here, right? Is that it is, number one, underwater. It's cool, not warm. See, all my whites are light blue, and it's facing the wrong direction. So let's just start with a simple image and flip canvas horizontally. Now, because the sea turtle is against all this blue color, I can use the blue color as a way of cutting it out. And this is using the magic wand tool to select pixels. Okay, because I could come in here and I could try and cut this out using this, which would take forever. And there's a couple other tools I can use there to kind of cut it out. I can even just use a simple eraser to cut it out. But because this is against a more or less a color that is different than what I want, I can use the color of this water to control the pixels or to cut it out. So I'm going to select a value of blue. And you see what that value of blue basically represents. If I hold in Shift to add to it, I can keep selecting these values of blue. Now, if I can only get this to go away, I see there's a chat there. Let me see what it is. Photoshop is a beast. Yes, there we go. Now it went away. Now you see my tolerance for my magic wand is set to 6, and that's why when I click, it selects a very small amount of blue. If I increase that to about 30, which is I think is the default value, and I select blue, I'm able to select larger areas of blue. So I hold in the Shift or the Add. Okay. And I'm not going to select all these little light blues because he actually has some of that blue in him. So I'm just going to switch over to a lasso tool here. Okay, we turn it down to 0 feather for now. Choose the Add button or the Shift button to get an add. And I can now select all this other dots that are not selected across the top and include it in my selection. There's also a couple down here at the bottom. Okay, so now you can see I pretty much have all the blue selected. Now let's go in here and look at what this means when I select it by color. Because a common error people make when they do this, even in the visual effects world with blue screens, green screens, is they end up getting, because it's selecting by pixels, you're getting this very jaggedy, pixelated selection, which isn't exactly correct because the image itself should be a smooth selection. Plus, where it starts to meet the turtle, it's not including some of this additional blue, which is just inside that border. See that? It's like I'm off by about a pixel or two. So switching back to my selection, and it could be the magic wand, it could be the lasso, I get this tool here called Select and Mask. And this is really, really important because what this is going to allow me to do is adjust this edge because I want this edge to be not blocky, but smooth. I want it to not just be absolute, as in select this, but not that. I want it to have a feathered edge, which is a opacity shift. It's like a soft brush, right? So it's going to give me a soft selection on there. And I want to adjust so that this selection goes into the turtle a little bit more to include some of this halo of blue. So I select and mask, and this pop-up window pops up. Now, again, you can see, for example, there's a single pixel here it didn't select. And you see it's only selecting absolute black or white. Now, that's just the view style. You can see I could do marching ants, I could do onion skin, I could do an overlay. Again, that which is red is not selected. There's on white. There's actually showing me the transparency of what I have selected. And look at how hard this edge is. The hard edge is going to give me the effect, guys, of me just using a pair of scissors. And that's not good. Now me, I like to use black and white because it gives me a cleaner edge view. If I roll down here, then you're going to see my refinements. So I said already, I don't want it blocky and pixelated. I want it smooth. So I'm going to give it just a little bit more smooth factor. And you see it's going through pixels now. So instead of just being jaggedy black or white, I'm getting a little bit more variation in there. Also, I'm then going to come in and it's by 7 pixels. See, I'm also going to feather it a certain amount of pixels. This will soften, see, soften that edge. A little bit high. Maybe I can back it off a little bit. There we go. So now it's not just a smoother selection, it's a feathered selection, which means it's going to give me more transparent edge, which will blend better into the background I'm going to use. Finally, I'm going to use the shift edge. And if I go into the negative percentage, you're going to see it's going to go into the ocean, which I don't want. I want it to go shift edge into the turtle to move that selection more into the turtles itself. So when I hit OK here, you're going going to see now, instead of being harsh like it was, it's actually moved more into the turtle, which means less blue. And this is going to be a feathered edge. So this blue, which may look bad here, is probably going to be about 10% opacity right on this edge going to solid. Now, a couple ways, because remember, we have the blue selected. I could do just a layer mask like this. And you see when I did that, well, that layer mask, because I had the water selected, eliminated the turtle. See, whereas the turtle is black and the water is blue. And I can simply invert that by hitting Control and I. And you see, I still have a pretty bad blue halo there. See that blue halo going around everything, which is incorrect. So I'm just going to go undo, undo, select and mask again. I'm going to shift that edge now again, a little bit more into the turtle. Let it catch up a little bit here. I can even feather it a little bit more, smooth it a little bit more, okay? And now it's even further in to the turtle, which now, Control I, you see I have even less blue halo. Now I could keep adjusting that and doing that. And again, you see here, I'm simply using what's called as a layer mask. And what does that layer mask allow me to do? Well, because it's non-destructive, all I need, if I want to here, is to paint with it selected. So again, the turtle is white, which means the outside is black. Let me zoom out just a little bit more so I can see the size of my brush. Yeah, I had cap lock on. Cap lock is not your friend in Photoshop. You see, if I want to remove some of this more, all I have to do now is just paint a little more black on that edge, and it acts like an eraser to take out that blue. Okay? Because I'm just adding to the layer mask to eliminate that blue. Because again, what if I didn't realize when I was selecting that I had actually cut something important out using that magic wand, right? Well, I could use this now. Let me just show you here if I switch to painting white, and I can repaint that to get what I took away. So that's why it's called non-destructive editing, is because I'm only doing it to the layer mask, not to the image itself. Now, you could just delete, but this is the best practice I've found. This is what a lot of people preach and teach about Photoshop, is to use these layer masks. And now, because I've done that, okay, select my turtle, not the layer mask, and all I need to do is bring it in, okay, and place it. Now I can do some simple things here like scaling, you know, maybe some rotation elements to get him where I want him to be. Now, if you get to a point though, oh, I actually forgot this too. Hold on a second, let me come here. Right, I forgot to place embedded the original turtle. Whoops, there. Right, to show my proof of concept on what I used to create this. All right, now, if you want, though, to get to a point where you can collapse this and then make more adjustments to it, you can simply right-click and apply the layer mask, and now it's just a normal cutout of it. But here's where, now we get into some other issues with this. Now, you notice there's not a whole lot of halo going around him because we were able to adjust that edge. But the turtle, like I said, is cold color. There is white in it when there's no white in the background. So this is where we can get into some simple image adjustments here. And my favorite is actually a photo filter. Because you can see, I can add a warm filter to it to warm it up. And that's basically saying, and there's several of these, see? Warming filter, there's cooling filter where I can add more blue to it all. You know, yellow, orange, green, cyan, all these things are here. And you notice how it's just applying a colored filter to the entire one layer. I could also then select the color value because really the lighting of the turtle should almost be this kind of yellowish orange here. See, so I can almost find, see, that's a little too much of an orange. It's almost more of a yellow. I can also do it color, which allows me to choose, certain color values, especially if I had the code. Something like that. And now you can see how I'm applying that color that was basically here to the turtle to kind of match up that color value. And what it did, of course, is it washed out a lot of the extra blue, but there's enough color value here now, okay, to actually make it work. We could also say, yeah, well, he's kind of lit from behind, so maybe we need to play around with a little bit of the levels. Because again, I want true black, you want true white on each of these, then some of it in between. I could also do that really quickly here to the background layer, right? True black, more true white, a little bit of color in between. And so I'm just trying to make it look like it belongs. Okay. Now, so I used because it was on a single or a very close to single color background, I could cut it out using the magic wand. Now, what happens though when you have a busy background? Okay, now this is not necessarily what I'm going to use here, although I could. Let's see, where'd she go? There she is. Okay, so even though this is not the one I'm going to use in the image, but this is a great example here of a busy background where the magic wand, you see, is going to go into her body. I can't really use that here because she's got a lot of the very same color in her that's in the background itself. So the magic wand is not going to work here. Now I could go in here and trace her piece by piece by piece very carefully with some of these other tools. But this again is where we're going to use the pen tool. Now again, the pen tool can be rather frustrating because, and we'll learn that next week when we get into vector art in Adobe Illustrator. And the pen tool also has its limits as far as things like delicate areas like hair and such. But believe it, we can add that afterwards. But the pen tool is pretty simple in the sense that you can click and drag to create what's going to become a vector mask. Okay? The problem, as most people will testify about this vector mask, though, is that when you get into a lot of detail, like let's say I want to quickly make, do this and then here, and you start to lose control of it. This is where I also tell people, then don't click and drag. Just like you're cutting something out with a big giant pair of scissors, just follow, click, click, right? If you get a big area, you can click and drag, okay? But most of it is just going to be a series of small clicks. So you don't have to be a master at using the pen tool. Just going to trace around. It's just like I said, it's if you're cutting something large out of a piece of paper that's got detail, you don't just start cutting detail, you take out the big areas first. When you get into round sections like this, this is really where the pen tool really does shine. But most of the time when I'm using it, I'm just making lots of series of clicks. Which again, you could actually do the same process here with the polygonal lasso tool. Let me just expedite this a little more. I'll leave a little bit of her shadow down there. And this again is going to be something we're going to need to adjust because obviously we don't want, if we're going to put her into a dark background, Well, we sure as heck don't want a white halo around her, right? Which is what she's got. So we're going to need to be very cautious about using the select and mask tool to then smooth, feather, and offset the selection. So we're grabbing it more into her body to eliminate that white halo. And once again, these are just basic tools for Photoshop. I'm showing you how to do, cutouts and selections. So I'm not even going to worry about her delicate hair here. Hair is the devil when it comes to cutting things out, but it's a lot easier for me to go ahead and add that in after I'm done. Okay, so I've selected. Now, with the pen tool still selected, I can right click on this and you can see I can create a vector mask, right? That's pretty easy to do because you see it's basically just made just like a layer mask. It's created a vector mask, which isn't based on pixels. It's based upon the smooth curve of what I've created. I can also, I can also make a selection with a feather. I'll give it a feather too. And now all it did is just convert to the marching ants, which we've already used in like the magic wand and the other selection tool, which will allow me now to switch to this select and mask. See that? It's already got a little bit of feather, so I don't really need feather. I just need to smooth it. Up, and now this one is selecting in the negative value into her. Okay. And she's selected. So again, now I can do this and you'll see very rapidly, we've got her cut out, and I'm just going to temporarily drag her in here so I can put her. I could have her riding on the turtle. I could have her, sitting on the edge in the water. But you can see, because I use that select and mask tool, she really doesn't have much of a white halo around her. Also, you notice, because I used feathers, she's got a soft selection around her, which is not just a sharp cutout of things, but rather, you see, it's a soft edge. If you have, go up to turtle here a second. Okay, go up my turtle. If you need to blend something in better to the background, you see how that's a nice soft edge? It actually blends in with the pixels rather than being sharp. If you have a sharp edge like this, you can use the blur tool on that layer, a little smaller. You see my strength is by default 75. And what this works as almost like when you're drawing something with pencil and you want to soften the edge quality, you take your finger and smear it. Well, that's what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to follow this along the edge. And you see what it's doing is it's just softening that edge to eliminate the illusion that you have cut this out from another photo. You're pushing it in, pushing those pixels into the background. And that looks like it's part of the actual photo here, just dragging that little blur tool around the edge. See that? I love that. It's really a next level tool here when you're like, yeah, this is a little too crisp. We'll just drag that along. And you see, and then it just looks like it's more, you're just smearing the edge so it doesn't look like it's just roughly cut out. And that's essentially doing the feather after if you didn't use enough of it, see? Plus, it's a great tool to use if you're creating the illusion of depth of field or something like that to, draw attention to an area, to create the illusion of depth. Drag that around, drag it around. And you're just, again, just massaging that edge pixel so it blends in the background. Which again, is a seamless integration of your layers. I could even do it to her down here if I wanted to, but I'm not going to use her actually. I think I locked her. All right. Now it's time to go get the nets. Now it's time to go get the seagulls and whatnot. For now, I'm just going to jump here to a moment where I've already got some of this done. And you can see For example, I was even the net, I had to stretch it to make it fit. I put the fin on top by masking off and erasing around underneath that to make it look like here it's on top of the turtle. Here the turtle is on top of it. Here it's on top of the fin. This is a good chance though to even go back to my turtles here, because you can see the turtle is in a slightly different pose in this turtle version than the one I just had. And what I did there, guys, is okay, copy, paste. Actually, let me undo copy, paste. Let's give it a selected mask on just this little fin, which will allow me to smooth it and feather it and so on. Smooth, feather, shift. And I'm actually going to cut and paste. Okay. Now I cut and pasted that, which means, remember, you might want to come back to it and just give it another little blurred edge to what I cut. Because there's a cool little tool here that allows us to pose things, okay? Watch this, okay? I know that this fin needs, I want to have this in a little wider pose. Okay, I'm also going to put this, watch this a second, behind it, behind the turtle, so it's behind it, right? So, so it's behind. And I'm just going to quickly come in here and fill in the edges here. So let's do this. Let's come here and create an illusionary edge. I'll come here and correct. Clone stamp tool. And I'm going to kind of fill in some more of his fin. Right, pretty neat and nifty there, right? So I just added to his fin. But what if I want to pose that fin different? Well, watch this tool. Edit, puppet work. Oh. Let's deselect puppet work. And you see what it does is it actually in the puppet work, it's doing a mesh deform. And what I can do is plot these pins and say, hey, that pin doesn't move. This pin won't move. But maybe I want to deform the shape of this fin here, like he's actually got it out here a little bit. See? And so we can warp and pose in different ways because it's got no background. It has to be cut out of the background to work like that. And this could be something as simple and stupid here. Let me just come here. My bad, hold on. That's it. Hit the wrong button. Let me just come over here just to show you what I'm talking about here with anything. So you may not find the perfect photo, or your photo might need to have a little bit of alteration to it. So again, watch this. Maybe I want to change your pose a little bit. Okay, applied it. Watch how cool this is. Puppet move. She's sitting down. I don't want her feet to move. I don't want her knees to move. But I'll select the middle of her head and just change her pose a little bit. See? That's pretty neat. So you could do all kinds of stuff with this as far as, you know, so again, before and after. Or And you could do this to the form in all sorts of ways. For like doing caricatures and such. Okay, so it's just a matter of you want to apply top work to where you want something to move, but you also want to lock it in to where you don't want it to move. Now again, you don't want to distort too much, but that's a totally different pose for her. And it works. No, the knee is exactly. All right. So some other things we can do here, just to make certain corrections. Remember, we're talking light and shadow, right? My turtle layer selected. We also have these tools here for like dodge and burn. Dodge is a way of adding a little more exposure or light to something. So I can literally go over this and just make it a little bit lighter. Burn is where we can create the illusion of shadow. So now I'm literally making it look like this back fin is further away and that the top fin is kind of, you know, shading what's beneath it a little bit. Kind of like that. So you're kind of manipulating the light and shadow quality to make it more brilliant or less brilliant or something like that. And that's when we get to, again, building this composition, getting it to work like that. Now, I don't have, maybe I'll go back to this one. A few more things to talk about. So you're assembling, you're doing all this. Now I'm going to keep this, I'm not going to use the net right now. I know I don't have 5 images, but it is getting a little more terrifying here. Something like reflection. So duplicate the layer, take the lower layer, Command T. Flip it. Right. And how do we make this look like it's a reflection? Well, it could be a blending mode issue. Like the overlay, maybe a little less opacity, maybe a little blur. Remember I used the motion blur before to blur out the water, and suddenly it looks like he's now in the sky floating, right? Now in reality, you can see the sun itself is reflected here. That means this is a little bit closer. But let's talk about something simple or something more complex now, like an effect. Okay, so you saw in the original sketch there was a splash. This takes us to brushes. So we can find dynamic Photoshop brushes, right? So I'm just going to type in Photoshop brushes, and you can see there's entire libraries. Okay, there's Adobe where you can actually make them and sell them. If I type in something, you know, specific like splash, you're going to see Brush Easy. Brush Easy is a very popular site for brushes, free downloadable brushes. And you can see splashes. You can type in fire. You can type in smoke or fog. And all you got to do when you select these, first off, too specific that you can find a free one like this. Free download, and it downloads to your download folder, which means then you can move it around into a library. So you see here, I currently have explosions, water splash, fog. These are all brushes. And all I need to do to load them into Photoshop here is to select the brush, go into my library with brushes. Now, I've already got these loaded here, but I'm just going to show you how you load it. And we say import brush, find your Photoshop brushes, right? Let's say explosion, load it, and it now adds it to your list. And now you've got I'll just show you explosion because I got it selected here. A little bit. And with the color, you can see if I were just to make a new layer, click, painting white, paint white, what it gives me. So if I'm talking about a water splash, I already have those loaded in here. Then I can come here and find a better looking splash. You can see what these are. Yeah, I kind of like that one there. Let's make it a little smaller. Again, I'm going to make it on its own layer so I can control the size. I click on it. I can then scale and work with it like it's an actual layer. And again, now maybe it's a blending mode issue to make it blend into the background better, right? Overlay, hard light, vivid light. But the point simply is if you're looking for smoke or fog, fire, explosions, anything that would be very difficult to cut out or find a photo for, you can download brushes for it. Just make sure though, and I'll just pick a color here, that if you're going to use that you include it here in another layer here, that we include it over here as it's one of the source images you did. Right? And that kind of just says, hey, yeah, I use this, and that's what it looks like when it's used in there. Yeah, because there's so many cool things. Even if you go to the very top here, for example, make a new layer. I love using a lot of dynamic effects when I'm done to blend things in. These could be lens flares. This could be smoke or fog or cloud. These free fog brushes here. Let me just grab a little bit of fog. Then I can choose what color fog I want it to be. Maybe I want it to be this kind of light orange fog. I'll just click on the layer. It's going to paint me a layer of fog. See that? Which I can then just scale. And look at how cool that is in the sense that it is blending in with all those layers down beneath it. And again, once we're at that stage, maybe it's a blending mode. Okay. Look at that. So that starts to blend it all in and do different techniques. Okay. Just different looks and feels to it all and how it blends in there. Maybe it's too intense. Maybe I need to just back it off on intensity here a little bit. So eventually you're going to have your final image manipulation, taking into account shadow cast, layers, what direction the light's coming from, all that stuff. Demonstrate what you used as your resource photos. Put your name and your information down at the bottom. I even sometimes, when I'm done saving this, right, you save it, or you're saving generations. Just give this the Wednesday. So before I go and mess with this anymore, I'm just going to save it as a PSD, and then I can select all my layers of my art. So it's right here, right? That's everything that's here. Merge that together. So it's just one single layer. And even then, you can have more fun just pushing with it. You know, copy that layer. What about it on top of itself? See what you can do with this? You can almost say, yeah, you know what? I really like this multiply version here, but maybe it's just a little too intense. So maybe I'll just bring the opacity back. Okay. And then I can go back and merge those two together. Maybe I want to have something simple and stupid here, which is overused, like a lens flare, which you see, again, whenever you have something that's kind of blocking the view of the background, like sunlight coming in through the trees, you might get a lens flare there. You see what that does. It's a little overused, obviously, and there are better lens flares to do that. And then you just finish it off. And again, this is why I like to do a little frame of black, or you can even do a frame of any other color that's even in your image. So maybe instead of black, I'll do this blue, dark green on its own layer. And you see now it's just a finished, polished piece. So in a nutshell, guys, like I said, save this as the PDF, drop it into the folder, right? So when you have your folder, you've got everything in the proper folder. Where am I going to do with this? Here, go in here. You can go to the Dropbox folder, upload that zip file with everything you need. Now, again, you can even see some samples here, which I don't think I showed you, of other students' work in the past. See their restoration or their photo manipulation. And again, I can look at any of these, like even this, I'm like, yeah, that's a photo manipulation, but it doesn't really, it isn't a successful one per se. Like, again, yeah, they're demonstrating what they've got, but you're using animation artwork, illustration artwork, photograph artwork. Yeah, it passes in photo manipulation, and there's some sloppiness in the selection that you can see here where it's a little wavy. Why is this bright green when there's no other green in the image? The shadows, every rock and everything here, the shadow is going literally to the left and the light is on the right, but yet here he's not casting any shadow on the ground. The earth is not shadowed correctly. The glove is not shadowed correctly. So even though I use this as an example, it's not a good example per se. Plus, there's just so much potential here for things like playing with the lights, the glows, all that stuff. So that's where, again, I provide those examples, but they're not necessarily the best. I mean, this one here is a great example of, you see the original pieces here, right? So she's very warm. The final version is very cold. Now the mushroom lit completely different, so I flip it. Sky, the fern, and even creating that illusion of three-dimensionality. So that could be something as simple as even going back to, this and saying, oh, I'm missing, I've got my background, I've got my middle ground, but where's the foreground element? And that could be something as simple as just opening something to put into the foreground. Maybe it's a fern, maybe it's trees. So again, here I've got this fern. It's on a white background. I can select this and select all the white, or hit the contiguous. So I select all the white now. Right? Select the mask, feather, offset, right? Shift edge. I'm just going to delete it for now. Oops, I guess I can't delete it. I need to select invert. Cut. Paste. Now again, watch this shortcut. For creating a foreground, like I'm looking through the trees or something like that. But what's the problem with this? Is that there's no depth of field here. And they're a little large. But there's no depth of field. because everything's in focus and it's a landscape. And I know damn well when I'm dealing with depth of fields in a landscape like this, and there's objects in the foreground, something's got to be out of focus to create that illusion of depth. So with the things in the foreground, I'll give it a Gaussian blur. It's too much. Something like that. Now there's more distance in space. What else is wrong with it? It's backlit. So things that are very close like this are probably going to be silhouetted. And maybe I'll come to my levels and ask for a little bit of a silhouette, right? But you see now how it's creating that depth of field for me. That actually tells me now that my background should be. So it's this illusion of pulling your eyeball in to see something, to get something completely different. Now, again, I have to add my fern here, right? Because it's formatted as an image, but it's fun to play with the field in such this way that you can draw the attention to it and get that illusion. Because digital photos, guys, in the old days, and also your cell phone, the lens is so small, so narrow, you can't really get depth of field unless they have that new app, which allows you to select what the focus is. And you're like, oh, focus on the person, and it will blur out the background purposefully because it's creating that illusion of a lens, which is a distance lens, like a telephoto lens or something, where the more distance between your lens or lenses, the more depth of field you get, and you can then create that illusion of that. And now it's pulling your eye, and it has a clear example of a foreground, a middle ground, a background in your composition. So pretty cool stuff. See here.